friends, welcome to another bookish video. My name is Emily and today I have a fun little TBR book video to share with you. I'm not somebody that typically sticks to a very strict TBR list. I don't usually make a big long list of books that I really want to get to in a specific time frame. I'm very much a mood reader, and so I usually will just pick up and read whatever catches my fancy at the moment. However, I have a number of books that have been living on my bookshelves for, I think one of these has only been there for a couple of weeks, but most of these have been there for months and months and months. And so I thought that what might be kind of helpful for me to help encourage me to actually read some of these books that I want to read, like that's why I purchased them in the first place, is because I want to read these books, is if I do a sort of seasonal TBR where I pick out a number of books from my shelf and specifically try to read through those throughout sort of, I guess every season is about 3 months if you think about it. Like the first day of spring is in March and then the first day of summer is June. So my thinking is like, okay, I've got about 3 months and no strict timeline. At some point in those 3 months, try to get through this selection of books. So that's what today's video is going to be about. It's going to be my I meant to film this video at like the beginning of April. I just haven't gotten to it. Here we are in like the last week of April and life. But I have a list of, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 books that I've pulled from my shelves that I would really like to read before the first day of summer in June. So basically I have May and most of June that I would like to try and pick up one of these books here and there and read through them. So I just realized that I forgot to grab one, so I'm going to go and grab that one and then I'll talk you through my list. Okay, the first book that I want to read is actually one that I would like to read within the next week. I would like to start it probably today, if at all possible, and try to get it finished up before the end of April. And that is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. I've heard a lot about this book. I've never actually read it. Some older books, my husband and I were actually talking about this just yesterday, have a tendency to have kind of melancholy overtones or like almost tragic endings for some of them. Some of the most like famous and well-known books like War and Peace or what's the other one? Anna Karenina, or books of that nature. Like some of the classic books tend to have sort of a melancholy or in some cases a downright depressing overtone. And for some reason I'd always kind of thought that The Enchanted April was one of those that had like a weird or sad ending or something. But I've heard several people talking about it, and I've realized that I haven't looked up spoilers. I'm tempted to. I haven't looked up spoilers. I don't know what happens at the end, but I read the first page here and I was just like, oh, this actually sounds like it would be quite fun. And it's a book that I've been very curious about. I bought this, I think I got this copy at my last library book sale, which is coming up this week, so stay tuned. There's going to be a library book haul. I'm so excited. But it's I really like this edition of it. I love this artwork style. It's so pretty. So I would really, really love to get to this one and read it in April, since it's The Enchanted April. So I'm pretty sure that I can get through this in the next week. But that's the first book. Where do I want to put my stack? Alright, the next book is one I've already mentioned. I mentioned it in my spring, or 10 books for spring video, that it's a book that I would like to get to, and that is Miss Buncle Married by D.E. Stevenson. I read Miss Buncle, is it Miss Buncle's book? I read that last year, I think, and I found this, again, this was another library book sale. I got this beautiful Persephone edition of it for $1, which I saw it and I just recognized that it was a Persephone book because I've watched some of Miranda Mills videos here on YouTube, and I didn't even see at first that it was Miss Buncle Married, and then I saw what book it was and I was like, even more so, I have to get this. And I just barely started it, and then I got distracted. I think I got distracted by Mrs. Polifax. But I would really like to get to this. I've actually, it's a little bit of a sneak peek for my April roundup. I've read 2 D.E. Stevenson books in the last 2 days. So I have been even more so falling in love with her writing and her books, and I want to read this. So this one is another one I'm hoping to get to sooner rather than later, possibly right after the Enchanted April. But we'll see. Like I said, there's no strict deadline, just sometime before the first day of summer. So I guess that is kind of a strict deadline. But it's like, I've got plenty of time. I've got like 2 months to read these. It's fine. The next one is one that I have wanted to read. It's a series. So I want to just get like stuck into the series. I don't have to read the whole series before the beginning of summer. But one of my all-time favorite books growing up, or book series growing up, was the Betsy-Tacy series. I did not realize until I was an adult, like a couple years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, that this is actually part of a like 10 book series or something. I only ever read the first 4 books. So this is a collection. It has the first, you can see here, these first 4 books. We had these pictured editions growing up. And so we just had those first 4, and I never realized that there were actually many more. So again, that was something I found out watching Miranda Mills videos, and I was just like, jaw dropped, like, oh my goodness, because I loved these books so much growing up. I read them when I was a young girl, and they're about these 3 friends. The main character, all the rest of the books are kind of related to her, is Betsy, and it starts out when they're like 5, and she meets up with Tacy, who has the red curly hair, and then Tib is the little blonde-haired one, and they just become the best of friends, and they just sort of start doing all these little girl adventure things, and I just loved it so much. Like the writing and the descriptions and everything, it's so good. So my plan is, because I had initially, I don't know if you can kind of see it, I have a bookmarker in here. I was like, oh, well, I'll start at the beginning and I'll read through the whole series. I'm kind of torn on that because I do really love the books, but the first couple of books are very kidsy. Like, not necessarily in a bad way, but the writing and everything, it's very child-friendly. And so it took me a little bit to like read through the first one, even though it's a very quick read. So I'm torn on whether or not to just pick up where my bookmark left off here and just go through it, or if I'll just read the last book, which is Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown, or the 4th book in the series, before carrying on with the rest of the series. Because again, at a library book sale, I found, I have books 5 through 8 or 9. I don't have the last like 2 books in the series or something, but I found the next few in the series, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I'm gonna grab these and I'll get to these at some point. That was a while ago. I still have yet to read them. So this one is the 5th book in the series, which is Heaven to Betsy. And then I have the next ones are all the same edition, or matching edition. So I'm conflicted. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but I would very much like to at least start reading through the series. The next book is the one that I've only had for a couple of weeks, and it was really serendipitous and funny because I mentioned in my, I think it was my March roundup, that I actually read another Mary Stewart book, and I really enjoyed it and I wanted to read more. Like, literally, one of you lovely viewers commented on there talking about how they absolutely loved reading Thornyhold by Mary Stewart, and that was kind of what got them onto their Mary Stewart kick. And I was at Goodwill like within a day or 2 of that happening, and the first thing that I see when I walk over to the bookshelf is Thornyhold by Mary Stewart for $1. I had to pick it up. I just had to. Like, how could I not? And so I think I've read like the first, just the tiniest little bit of it, maybe a chapter. But I was just like, oh, I have to read this. And it's a very, like, it's such a slim novel. And I feel like I could read this in just a day or two, depending upon how into it I get, maybe one day. But this one I would really, really like to read and continue my discovery of Mary Stewart's books. The next one is actually, I'm going to share it anyway, but I have actually already read it. Like I said, I meant to make this video at the beginning of April. This was one of the books on the list, and then I ended up reading it. And that is Tied Up in Tinsel by Ngaio Marsh, which is book like 27 or 8 or something in the Inspector Allen series. I love the series so much. Anyway, I didn't actually end up reading this paperback copy. I just got it on my iPad as an ebook, and I was able to read it. But I have already read this one. It's super, super fun. I absolutely love it. I love the whole series. And now I need to read the next one. I only have like 3 left or something, which I'm kind of sad about. But it's okay. I can always... I'm a huge rereader, so I can always start back at the beginning and read all the way through again. But so I have already done this one, but I am including it in this because it was in my initial lineup. The next one is Quick Curtain by Alan Melville. I believe it was last year. Again, I found out about the British Library Crime Classics collection that's put out. It says it's by Poison Pen Press, but anyway, I found out about it from Miranda Mills, and I just devoured so many books from the British Library Crime Classics series last year. A bajillion of them. And one of the books was, I think it's A Weekend in Thrackley by Alan Melville, which was my introduction to Alan Melville. And unfortunately, he only wrote like 3 of these sort of Golden Age murder mysteries. They're so good. Oh my goodness gracious. I read The Weekend in Thackley, and then I think it's The Death of Anton. And those are 2 of them. And then the third one is Quick Curtain. I love his writing. There were bits in it that just made me like crack up laughing. Like I was having so much fun with it. And so I couldn't get my hands on this via the library or anything like that. So I actually picked it up off of abebooks.com. I found a really good and expensive used copy. It's an ex-library edition, as you can see. So it has that really nice like plastic coating on the paperback, so it's like sturdy. And I've been wanting to get to it. As you can see, I have a bookmark in here. I started reading it and just got distracted, like you do. It looks like I was just about to start chapter 3. So I would really, really like to finish this because his writing is just so good. Highly recommend it. If you like Golden Age murder mysteries, there's only 3 books that he's written, like I said, which I'm kind of sad about because I would have loved it if he had a bazillion of them. But I'd like to read that one. And then the next book, this one was actually a gift to me from a dear friend. We've never met, but we've been kind of online friends, online connected for several years now. And she so very generously sent me this book, which is The Girl from Montana by Grace Livingston Hill. And she said that this was one of her very, very favorite books. She loves this author. And she sent it to me last May. And I have yet to read it. And it's been sitting there on my shelf, and I very much want to read it. Part of it was we moved in between then, and so all the books were packed away and moved, and I didn't have access to it. But I've been very much wanting to read it because it's one of those things where it's like if a friend of yours gives you a book or whatever, it makes you really want to read it. And I haven't gotten to it at all, so I would love to get this read this spring because I found a book collection. Oops, that's my phone went off. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. I found a book collection at Goodwill shortly after we moved by Grace Livingston Hill. This collection of like 4 of her novels or something. And so, and the synopsis, the summary sounds really interesting for those, but I'd like to read this one first for this to be my introduction to this author. And then the last book in this stack, I'm hoping this is kind of a shorter video for you, is The Blue Castle by L.M. Montgomery. I've never read this book. This was, again, another library find. I love how libraries have started doing it where not every library, but some libraries where they'll have like a book sale section throughout the whole year, but then they'll also do, at least my local library, it does it twice annually, book sale, one in the spring and one in the fall. And it's so nice because you can pick up books for so inexpensively. And I absolutely love this edition. This is a book that I've heard a lot about. I've heard that it is much more of a, I wouldn't say adult book, but it's aimed towards more older people rather than like her Anne of Green Gables series where it's like at least the first couple. They're more about younger characters. This one's an older character. I think she's like in her late 20s, mid to late 20s. I have heard that this one is one that will make you cry, which I'm not super anticipating, but I've also heard that it's an incredibly sweet and lovely and wholesome story, so I'd like to read it. I tried to read through the Anne of Green Gables series last year and I only got through 3 of the books, and again part of that is just because I have the physical copies of all of them and I'm really trying to read the physical copies, and last year I was so bad about reading actual physical books. I was reading everything via ebook. So this year I'm trying to like balance it a little bit more because there is something about holding an actual physical book that is just lovely. So I have this edition of this book that I would really like to read. I'm very curious about it. I'm curious to see if I will like it or not. I do really enjoy L.M. Montgomery's writing style. I think she is an excellent writer. It's probably why she's so well known and famous and loved. But that is all of the books that I have. Let me see if I can hold these up here. All my books that I'm hoping to get through in this late spring, early summer period of time. And I think I should be able to do it. I've been doing pretty good actually so far with reading physical books. And part of why I'm not like specifically trying to only read these books is because I'm getting a bunch of books from like the library, and then those have a deadline where you have to get them back to the library. And that actually helps me to read them. So I've been reading several library books, as you may have seen from my last video where I talked about some of the library books that I had recently read through, and then today I'm planning to start my next video in that series, my next vlog, library book reading vlog series today for the next stack of books that I have. You can kind of see them here. But yes. Let me know if any of these are some of your favorites and if you love them and whatnot. If there's any books that you are anticipating reading off of your bookshelves, I'd love to know about that. But yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful day and I hope to be back very soon with some more bookish videos. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.